And here I thought, oh, there's a chance I might get to fly because the cloud looked like it was kind of lighter and brighter, but nope, here comes the rain. Like the random ducks in open trails again. I wonder if I should try to see where the eggs are, so to speak. I've actually never seen it before in terms of the nesting areas for ducks. For the Mavic Pro Aeros, I actually wanted to test it in sports mode today, but unfortunately it's raining, because that should technically mean no obstacle avoidance or anything, just to see if that's the issue. I'll talk a bit about that a little later in terms of things like drone options and stuff and what to potentially do. I guess the first interesting thing I read was about phones and that Samsung Galaxy Fold, which is the one with the 2 screens, and it's so expensive, like $2,000. And with reviewers, apparently their phone was breaking in 1 day. I'm like, what? To my knowledge, these are review copies, not actual retail versions, but still, like this guy here says, my colleague opened the Galaxy Fold and it started doing this. So long answer to your question, the hinge doesn't seem very rugged after all, after 2 days. And there's a bunch of other people too, like after 1 day of use. For the potential cause of this, from what I was reading, people were apparently peeling off this piece that they thought was just something like maybe the screen protector or something like that. But Samsung apparently said it was an essential part to protect the actual phone, so oops, I guess. There's no instructions or anything. Either way, that must be really bad PR, huh? Sending all these expensive phones to these reviewers who you hope would give you a good positive review, but not in this case, I guess. And I saw this article that says, check out the D-21, a Mach 3 drone the US used to spy on China's nuclear weapons. Is that really a drone? It looks more like a missile of some sort. It says surviving D-215 resides at several US museums. China recovered the wreck, one self-destructed D-21, and put it on display in Beijing. And what made me think here, it said between 1969 and 1971 they were using this. Really? They've been using something like this way back then? Just kind of makes you wonder where all the things they say, like, hey, it's a UFO, whether or not actually it was like a drone, like a military drone or something like that. Also makes me think how a lot of people for over-the-top regulations are saying it's good because of it. We've never had like an accident. Yet one of the perspective is people have been flying things like model planes and stuff forever, and there's never been something catastrophic like that. Which is actually a good point. If these things have been flying in the air all that time, why is such a huge hysteria now? And the assumption for a lot of people would say is just because of the camera, right? And for the topic of choosing drones, this was kind of interesting because you would assume people like police officers, emergency workers, will use something really sophisticated and high-end, right? How about this little article? It says, the littlest fire drone. How much utility can a police or the fire department get out of a $99 drone? A lot, it turns out. When it first said $99, I was thinking, is it the Tello drone? Why would a police officer or emergency worker ever use a Tello drone in a critical situation? It says, small unmanned aircraft with exceptional current capabilities are available for public safety pilots at a wide range of price points. Some of the purchase prices of highly promoted equipment are needless budget busters, especially for smaller police and fire departments. It's easy to go out and spend $20,000 or much more on a UAS setup. But what most public safety professionals I talk to have not focused on is that even the expensive aircraft of today are still just entry-level UAS equipment. In a year or two, we will look back and shake our heads at their limited capabilities. I was thinking too, spend $20,000 easily? Who does that when they buy a drone? And it says here, I get many questions from the departments across the country about what drone to purchase first. Rather than give the conventional advice, I began a hunt for the least expensive option I could find that would still be useful, not perfect, but useful. I found a $99 winner. And sure enough, from reading this, it's the Tello drone. It says every department needs an inexpensive UAS to start with, and that can be used for training and crashing. To my surprise, the tiny Tello, a product of Ryze Tech in collaboration with DJI, delivers a lot of public safety value for the money. It's not only an inexpensive starter model for training, it can also snap photos and videos to document an incident and even fly inside a house to look for the perpetrator. This little quad is impressive. I'm just trying to wrap my head around that. I guess it's okay if you're trying to train indoors just to get used to things like the control. But would you ever, like a fire department, use this in a critical situation? Let's just say like that Paris incident. Would you actually fly this up there? Because from all the videos and stuff I've seen, just the slightest wind blows this thing away. It's meant more for like a fun drone to fly indoors and stuff like that, to my understanding. for a DJI product, I probably wouldn't want to go any lower than, say, the Spark in terms of using it for law enforcement and all that. If you just had no other choice, like it's better than nothing. I don't know if I would trust like a little Tello toy type of drone for that. And I guess with the topic of drones, if I had to get a new one just because of all the issues and stuff right now, which one would actually be the best one for me? I guess naturally you would assume, since I used a Mavic Pro, I might as well get one of the newer models, right? Like the Mavic 2 Pro or the Mavic 2 Zoom. At the same time, there's still some other interesting options out there nowadays. Like for example, just based on price, you have things like the Autel Evo. You can get that for $9.99. It has like the built-in screen and all that. And as well, just with the ones we talked about the other day, probably not gonna get the thermal camera version, it's way too expensive. Like the Parrot Anafi. And apparently that's only like what, $559 US? And compare that to things like the Mavic 2 Pro is about what, $1,500, and the Zoom model is $1,250. Just like before too, one of my considerations aside from things like portability, it's whether or not I could fly the things based on the regulations. And since the nighttime flying will be legal here, like in the summertime, that's actually a factor as well in terms of things like, I guess, camera quality. Because when I fly things like this, I intend to make it like an investment. If you're spending that much money, you should be able to use it for multi-purpose. And since I use it all the time as well, you want basically, I guess, the best bang for the buck, right? Fortunately, in this case, it's not like the camera situation where I pretty much did need like a replacement ASAP. Whereas this, we can kind of wait and see, evaluate. Who knows, maybe there'll be new announcements. I heard there was supposed to be a DJI announcement. Whether or not it's a drone, I don't know. But just something to think about for the time being, I guess. Alright, I guess for today it's the archive. Alright, see you guys later.